Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the channel. This is going to be a very exciting one. As you can see right here. So today we're talking Fire and Ash, the newest Avatar movie. And, I have the shirt, as you can see. This is from the cup. It's like a cup topper. I'm all in on Avatar. I became a huge fan after Way of Water, and something about that movie was just so perfect. The way Cameron blends the action and adventure with like the calm and intimate moments, and Fire and Ash promised through the trailers and interviews that he said whatever to be a little bit darker and to be a little more emotional. And my expectations were sky high. I was so excited for this. It was my most anticipated of this year by far. And I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was really good. But on my first watch, I did have certain problems, certain small problems. To go immediately into my negatives, that I have softened up a bit on a few, but I feel like just Quaritch and Varang's characters, they could have had a little bit more, they could have tied a little better bow on their arcs, but there's still enough to them to grasp onto, like narratively. Little things like that didn't quite push it over to the 10 out of 10 masterpiece range like I thought Way of Water was. Way of Water I saw, I think it's 9 or 10 times in the theater. After, taking all my friends to it, watching it by myself in different formats. This one I've only seen twice by now, and it's the 12th of January. I had been a lot busier than I usually am, so that is a factor, but I've had a lot of time to marinate on it until seeing it again this morning with a friend. I saw it by myself on opening weekend. IMAX 3D, of course. I wore my makeup, I wore my shirt and my ears here. It's a little darker, you might not be able to see. I went all in. I bought the cup, and I've been following Avatar all year. I mean, if you've even glanced at the channel, sometimes I'm like half joking with making a full video on one, concept art image. But I've been following the ad campaign and the interviews really closely, and I knew an idea of certain things that would go on. So maybe that affected my enjoyment after the first viewing. And I feel like that is the case because watching it again this morning, I really liked it a little bit more. I was able to like go with the story a little easier instead of like always trying to pick apart where they'll go or what they'll do. I was watching it a little less critically, to put it in, layman's terms. And I felt like the characters are what shine so much here. I just feel like I wish they had just a tiny bit more, in terms of giving every character their moment, especially towards the end. Some characters get a little forgotten. It just happens when there's so much going on, and you're juggling, Ash Clan and the RDA, and riling up all the clans and the Tulkun. The Tulkun, thankfully, do get enough screen time here to feel like the stuff they set up in Way of Water are paid off well. And Loak kind of goes to bat for Payakan. And You get a lot of themes of, upholding tradition or breaking from tradition and forging your own path uh, that maybe not everybody will be happy with, specifically your parents or the community as a whole. Quaritch. Oh my goodness, he's so interesting in this. It's, I mean, his arc between all three movies is just beyond interesting. There's so much to analyze and think about. There's parallels with him and Jake, of course. Him hooking up with Varang. And by the end, they don't really fully tell you where he's at mentally, but it seems like he's just about fully converted into being one of the Magquan people. This is just a minor spoiler thing, but one of my criticisms is I just feel like having a scene of him fully going to Varang and them fully teaming up would, one, it would put more of a tie on his character, and two, it would just leave the door open for so many different ways they could go in 4 and 5, which seems like we'll get if everything goes correctly, of course. It was so cool seeing Ian Garvin and Torsim. Torsim is the new... He's Toruk Maktu, yeah, for the Omatikayan clan. And Neytiri has way more screen time, way more to do than in Way of Water, which was one of my criticisms for Way of Water, is there isn't quite as much for her to do. And one of my other big criticisms, basically my two criticisms, is Neytiri and the stuff with Kitty and Spider in Way of Water. There's stuff left unresolved, and it is addressed for the most part. I do feel like, again, minor spoilers, I do feel like we could have gotten more of Awa and gotten a little deeper into Kiri's connection with Awa, but there's enough there. There for sure is enough there. It is definitely Way of Water 2.0 instead of being fully Fire and Ash and fully focus on the Ash people. But there's definitely enough to latch on to enjoy it as its own thing. And I've seen a lot of people enjoy it over Way of Water, which I've been surprised by, but it just has different things going for it, so to each their own. I also thought Spider was just as interesting, if not a little tiny bit more than in Way of Water, because he's torn between two worlds in the same way that both of his dads are, but he's a little more adventurous and like happy-go-lucky. He's kind of like Jake when he initially, discovered the world, and Quaritch is kind of warmed up a little bit more to being that adventurous and having that. He's opening his eyes a little bit to the world. I just really wish that we could have seen more of him opening his eyes. So full spoilers. This is for full spoilers. So Jake almost kills a spider. It's very biblical the way that scene is presented, and Neytiri realizes that it's just more bloodshed. It wouldn't really fix anything. And that's also what the Tulkun are talking about, how in their little court thing that they have, how they don't want more bloodshed, but if they're passive, it's going to lead to the bloodshed that they've been avoiding by being passive and not being violent to anybody. And we see a little bit of Awa, like I said. Took and Spider join Kitty in the spirit world, and that was a really sweet moment. Loak gets fully seen by Jake, hopefully, because, you know, they're still grieving from Nathaniel's death, and he's not fully over Loak's part in that until the end of this, even though Jake does still have his arc of accepting his family in Way of Water. I really wish Quaritch could have had maybe one more scene to wrap up his thing again, his arc a little bit more. And Ronal dies, which is a good moment, and it's really cool having Neytiri birth her child with her. But I just didn't see, there wasn't a scene with Tisrea or I think Aonung is his name. Tonowari and Ronal's kids, there just wasn't any, there wasn't any, like, even just one or two shots of them, mourning their mother. I'm just not sure, why little tiny things like that weren't included. But overall, I really, really enjoyed Fire and Ash. I'm going to see it a third time in IMAX 3D Tuesday, hopefully. And I'm looking forward to analyzing more of it. And thank you for listening to me talk about it. And here's to more videos in 2026. See ya.